insights and reflections that are coming through from that, and how they're kind of translating into thoughts and ideas about voice, and how that is supporting voice. And one thing at the moment which is really good, that I'm starting to feel the cumulative benefit of over now a period of, yeah, like 5 or 6 months, averaging going to flexibility and mobility classes 3 times a week roughly, and in addition to doing like other activities. But that's been like a really good commitment to actually say, like, let's anchor this in and have this as a space to go to that can actually be a baseline. You know, there's other things going on which are maybe actually activities which are introducing tension and giving the body more stress. So having that in between is breaking things up, but it's also creating space for like a check-in point as well, to actually slow down and to be slow in practice and mindful in practice about yeah, kind of tuning into the body. I mean, okay, like what's going on today, and what changes am I noticing or aware of? And the thing that strikes me, because a lot of those sequences are kind of mat work, so floor work stuff, and yeah, the time or the moments where there is space to actually work with the breath in tandem with, say, static stretches, is like the really kind of interesting space where there's a bit more room to actually play with expansion and to play with creating more room. And yeah, it's a really nice thing to do as well if you're feeling tight, or there's a bit of lactic acid build up from other activities, just to actually give yourself that that unwinding time to actually feel like, okay, the fascia is gonna really appreciate this, but also giving yourself space to catch your breath and to meet it, and to even actually ride on top of the breath and see where it takes you. And so it's been like a really nice reminder of the power of like floor work, and that's something that I have touched on briefly before, about how that as a space of exploration is actually quite vulnerable, even if it's you doing it yourself. Regardless of that, you might have someone else there that's leading or facilitating that, which can introduce interesting questions about power dynamics. If you've got somebody sitting and you're lying down, you know, you're kind of suddenly like an infant or something, you're quite exposed and vulnerable and on the mat. So there are lots of other influences or things that can shape your relationship with that space and your levels of comfort as to how fully, to what extent you allow yourself to really explore that exercise, and whether or not there are other things that are at play which maybe create a barrier or create a self-consciousness, or yeah, just that maybe the space or the environment or the facilitator or the group that you're in, or any number of things may give you feedback around, I don't feel like I can go into that stretch in a kind of deeper way, because actually that feels quite vulnerable or quite exposing. And that's fine. I think it's good to be aware of where those limits and boundaries are for us on a personal level. But it's also really nice when certain things do line up, and maybe it's the day, the time, how you are in yourself, or just that particular facilitator, the tone of their voice, the size of the group, just the conditions sometimes feel right and everything aligns, where you're like, okay, I am being kind of guided here and supported and invited and prompted to explore a holding position now. And because it is an invitation that's coming from an external prompt, you know, that sometimes is good to have that kind of, like, a gentle coaxing or a gentle prod that kind of says, go on, because sometimes we can come to doing floor-based work on our own, and maybe the format and structure of that is a bit more free flow, and we don't have necessarily or we're not trying to kind of hold too firmly this idea of facilitating ourselves when we're in that space, because we're trying to enjoy and relax, but then not necessarily having that structured input and invitation to explore things that we might not do otherwise, means that, yeah, sometimes when you're practicing that stuff on your own, I do find that your energy can actually dip quite a bit, or any kind of de-armoring or shedding or releasing that you do, whether that is kind of active and conscious and, like, you know, a decision to do that, or whether it's kind of more subconscious or involuntary, just by the fact that you are lying on the floor and suddenly you realize how tired you are. And maybe if you're in your own space, you know, in the comfort of your home, like your whole approach with the relaxation aspect of that means that you kind of go much more quickly into a formlessness, and that has its time and space, and I really do value that, and I think it's important to give ourselves, you know, time for that as well. And I think I would personally say, yes, I could definitely be doing more of that, and I would like to do more of that, because it gives you an opportunity to explore intimacy with self as well, about, you know, yeah, like creating a environment and conditions for a container that feel very much like a cocoon. But yeah, when there's the structure and framework there with someone else leading, and you feel safe enough to receive those prompts, and, you know, place trust that the person that is transmitting these steps to you is experienced and knowledgeable, and you know, that they are taking you through something that they have done before, and yeah, that you, it's not about submitting to that dynamic, but it's about there being a level of trust placed that, yes, I will receive that instruction, and I will, you know, integrate it and allow my body to translate that into how I respond and move. And I think there's something really good about that, you know, to practice that, and also to notice, you know, maybe one day the way that something's framed or the word that's used actually doesn't resonate, or it kind of brings up a response in you that is, yeah, maybe resistant to, and even that is really, really helpful feedback. And yeah, it's all good information to have. But yeah, of this kind of space that I've been in, it's just creating room for there to be like a much deeper check-in than there might be with, say, a seated practice, or like a grounding body scan type practice that's done standing. Yeah, coming to do static stretches on the floor, but then also there being actually some mobilization and movement happening as well, but in a very structured, paced way that is ultimately cumulative, in that you're hoping to have come out the other end of a session like that feeling more open and with more access to your energy. And I think a lot of that is connected to breath as well. Like even today, I was doing some quite deep stretching it was like hip flexors, but actually right into the psoas, and really like creating room and space in that like sacrum all the way up. And I felt the benefit of that, coming right back up over the chest and down the back. So it was like a really opening. It's quite some of these postures are quite hard and quite intense. If you hold a lot of tension there, as many of us do, but especially women, and that tends to fluctuate as well over the course of the month. Hormonally is definitely a factor with that. Yeah, you're kind of aware suddenly of how much breath availability is there, and maybe that holding pattern has been going down into the knees and the ankles, and actually the whole chain. There's been some tightness or tension there, and it's been creating a bit of restriction. So yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I'm really enjoying, is basically having moments of like a real connection to, let's explore filling up this space that I'm creating in my body with more breath, so I'm stretching, and I'm trying to kind of create more capacity within like the container of the instrument, and then I'm inviting the breath to actually fill that space and to energize and stimulate me, but in a way that is like very controlled and very yeah, like stimulating in a way that is not agitating, that's actually it's paced, it's measured, it's allowing me to navigate within that container. So if I'm visualizing the breath, it's never in a kind of one-dimensional or two-dimensional way. It's really this like, okay, complete 360-degree kind of framing of like this ball of energy basically that's in the body, and to what extent can I expand, and it's really nice when you have done something that has introduced a bit of tension in the stretch, and then there's a release from that, and you go back into it and there's a little bit more, and the breath then becomes this vehicle in a way to that you're able to kind of permeate this invisible barrier. And I think a lot of that awareness that's coming in is actually connected to moving slowly enough and intentionally enough that you're starting to feel the unwinding of the fascia. And when the breath is grounded and you are connected with expansion and contraction movements that are mirroring the breath, and you slow everything right down, once you are tuned into that, I mean, it's so subtle, but the power of that is quite astonishing. It's a real insight, I suppose, into being able to like really meet your energy and observe your energy and actually walk with it or be guided by it, be in dialogue with it. And I think, this is going to continue to be a really supportive practice for that reason, in terms of, translating that into the realm of voice. It's like, yes, when we build that connection with a space which is providing feedback and helping us to understand around our effort levels, exertion, around what release feels like, around what holding feels like, around thresholds and transition phases as they relate to movement, to take yourself to an edge and then to let that energy continue to move through and come through, even if from the outside it appears that you're actually holding a posture, or you are in a kind of state of stillness. Your internal landscape is more reflecting this kind of like tidal swell in and out. So tracking that alongside tracking your relationship to postures and moments of holding or stillness, I think is also a really good exercise in being able to move in and out of, like, this is my landscape, this is my energy, this is my body, but then also like coming back into a space that is shared with others, with other energies, with other bodies, and noticing like this, the most subtle shift in your posture, or like a slight movement of the hand, like when you're so still but also so connected to what's going on for you energetically. You notice your micro movements, and you notice the micro movements of others, and you notice others noticing your micro movement that you've noticed. So it's like a very interesting feedback loop, and I think it's also a very interesting space of practice, of allowing there to be a tracking of what is my nervous system doing, what is their nervous system doing, how is my nervous system responding to their nervous system, and this kind of non-verbal dialogue that's going on, that's actually shaping a lot of this physical, visceral, energetic space.